Alrighty, so for those of you that have just joined, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Noel, and I'm the Education Advisor here at Thinkful. My goal at Thinkful, or my role at Thinkful, is to speak to potential students about what their goals are, what programming languages they're interested in learning about, or if they have a specific project in mind they'd like to build. And based on that conversation, we discuss a program at Thinkful and whether it would be a good option for them. And today I'll be doing some of that by giving you an overview of Thinkful in general. So I'll talk about the individual course offerings that we have, as well as the Web Development Bootcamp. Now, I did want to note that if some of you have been looking at Thinkful for a number of days or even a couple of weeks, there has been a change. What used to be known as the Web Development Career Path is now known as the Web Development Bootcamp. And the main reason for that, and I'll go into detail about that later, is that the program itself has evolved a lot in the last 6 months. And it's gotten to the point where we can now confidently and honestly call it what it is, which is a bootcamp to launch you into a new career. But to start out, I wanted to discuss the curriculum, the mentor-led learning approach that we take, as well as the different financing options and payment plans that we have for the bootcamp. Also talk about the career prep and job placement component of that program, and take a look at some of our graduate outcomes. But to start, I wanted to focus our attention first on the individual course offerings that we have here at Thinkful. You may have seen these on the site as the Master of Skill courses, or the individual offerings that we have, which include concepts like front-end development, course on learning how to work with Ruby on Rails, courses on UX design, UI design, things like that. These courses are specific in that they're there to teach you a skill. They're for someone who has a project in mind or would like to get promoted at their job and move into a different role. They're perfect for a student who's perhaps an existing front-end developer and wants to learn to work with Python for backend, or for someone who has been working with Excel or another technology doing some data analytics work and wants to up their skills and go into a data science program. Alone, these courses aren't exactly enough to guarantee you a job as a developer or a data scientist or designer without the proper combination of a background or enrolling in multiple courses. They are, however, focused around one-on-one mentorship, which is a key component of any Thinkful program. And they also have a very project-driven curriculum, which adds up to a capstone project that's entirely student-created. These courses vary in price and length, from anywhere between $300 to $500 per month, and they take around 2 to 3 months to complete if you're able to work through those at a pace of around 10 to 15 hours per week. As I mentioned, these courses don't carry the same job placement guarantee as the bootcamp does, because they're structured more to teach you a skill, not necessarily to be the one program that's going to help you launch a new career. On the other side, you have the Web Development Bootcamp, which is structured to take you from a beginner to an employed developer or engineer. The bootcamp itself is also structured around one-on-one mentorship, but it covers a full stack curriculum, meaning that you'll learn both the front end and the back end, as well as the developer tools and computer science concepts that you'll need in order to help you transition and also succeed at your future role. Because the program is entirely structured around getting you hired, there's a very comprehensive career prep and job placement component, which I can go into greater detail towards the end of the presentation. But overall, I wanted to highlight what the program is about, and that's getting you hired. We have a track record of success with the program. Currently, our job placement rate is at 93%, and we're working with students all around the country, as you can see on your screen now. We have graduates and students that came to Thinkful, most of them with no real experience with programming, true beginners that have either looked at things like Codecademy or Treehouse, or maybe took a class once in college, no formal training, and also students who do have formal training. Maybe that's in a different technology or a different set of programming languages, and now they're making a transition into modern web development using JavaScript. Regardless of what your background is as a student, we strongly believe that the path to your new career as a developer begins with personal mentorship. And for that reason, everything we do at Thinkful is focused around the one-on-one interaction that you have with your personal mentor. Research has proven many times that one-on-one is the most effective and the best way to learn. And at Thinkful, a personal mentorship means a learning experience that's tailored exactly around who you are as a student. That means what your experience is, what your learning style is like, and then this is all accomplished only because we're pairing you with a single mentor throughout your entire program. The mentor will be able to pick up on your learning style. They'll be able to identify components of the curriculum that you may struggle with, or components of it that you can move through really quickly because you've had experience with similar technology before. It also means that you're going to have every question that you have answered by an industry expert whose job it is to help you transition into a new career. The way that you do this is by working with a mentor who's a senior engineer and also an incredible mentor. Overall, Thinkful mentors have an average of 10 years of experience working as professionals in the industry, and they're coming from really different backgrounds. Tristy and JP on your screen now are two perfect examples of the mentors that work for the Thinkful program. Tristy has been a software architect at companies like Accenture and Adobe, and she's more recently focused her attention around a website that encourages more women to join the industry as developers and engineers. She's a complete JavaScript expert. She's worked with virtually every framework and library there is. And she also has a very strong background in design and management. So really incredible engineer who's also an incredible mentor. JP on the right has worked for companies like Nike and HP and has built award-winning sites for them. He's also a very heavily focused JavaScript engineer. And he actually comes from a very heavy design background. He was an instructor over at the Art Institutes before he became an engineer. Overall, every mentor that works for Thinkful has gone through a very rigorous hiring process that's selecting not only for great engineers, but engineers that are great at passing on that craft. You can be a complete expert in your field, but that doesn't necessarily translate into being good at what you do and passing it on to a student and being a good mentor. Just to give you an overview of how rigorous the hiring process really is, over the last year, we've spoken to about 1,000 candidates who wish to become Thinkful mentors. We've selected fewer than 20% of those. And again, it's because the mentorship component of a Thinkful program is so important that we take such a progressive approach to hiring the best engineers who are going to be great teachers. You're going to be working with one of these mentors throughout the entire program. And the way that you interact with them is a weekly one-on-one sessions that you have. There is no typical one-on-one session between you and your mentor because really you as a student will evolve, so will the program and so will the programs that you're working with. But you are going to be spending a lot of time reviewing the progress that you've made and evaluating the work that you've completed. You're going to be discussing the best practices for a specific implementation, and you're going to spend a lot of time pair programming with your mentor. This is all to make sure that you're building a portfolio that you can present to employers and that you're building the technical skills that you need to succeed. One of the core challenges, as you may know, of being an adult student is that you have several responsibilities outside of the program. For many of you, that may be work. For others, it's family and friends that keep you busy. But regardless of what your obligation or responsibility is, the mentor is there to make sure that you can integrate the course into your life and succeed in the program itself. So really, the mentor is going to become your new best friend in development. They're going to be someone you go to for things that are technical and things that are also not technical. And on the technical side, that means learning to work with JavaScript and its different frameworks. The bootcamp program focuses entirely around using JavaScript for a number of reasons. Number one is that it's the most widely used language in web development. And it's also really highly versatile. You can build full stack applications and sites using just JavaScript and its different frameworks, outside of things like HTML and CSS, of course. But it's a very in-demand technology. As many of you already know or may know, the tech giants, Facebook, Instagram, created React. Google is behind Angular. These are all frameworks and libraries that are used for JavaScript. And they're in demand in places like San Francisco, which means they're in demand in places like New York City, St. Paul, Minnesota, and also in Denver, Colorado. Really throughout the entire country, you'll see JavaScript and its different frameworks being used. And they're also constantly evolving. Angular 2 was just released. React is a rather new technology. There's constant updates to other frameworks and libraries that you can work with. And this is because there's such a high demand for it in the industry. And our mentors let us know when those changes happen. So the curriculum that you're working on at Thinkful is updated frequently. Our mentors actually have conversations on Slack that are private where we discuss the curriculum, what students have thought of it, any issues that a student may have run into. And there are mentors that work for Thinkful and have additional responsibilities like being course leads. The course lead is responsible for the content in their particular curriculum. And we work with our head of curriculum here at Thinkful, Ben White, to update that program to make sure that the curriculum that you're working through is the most up-to-date, and the components that are included in that are going to help you prepare for the types of roles that you'll see as an engineer or developer in your future role. There are also other components of the curriculum that I'll get into deeper detail shortly. But to give you an overview of what you're going to be working with, you're going to start out by learning things like HTML and CSS as the fundamental basics of front-end development. Then you're going to learn the developer tools like working with Git and GitHub and working efficiently from the command line, which are all tools that you'll need to succeed as a developer. Before you move on to JavaScript and learning programming fundamentals with jQuery, responsive design, and then moving on to the server side of things, focusing on Node.js, MongoDB, and Express. Once you've wrapped that up, you'll complete the entire program by working with React for more advanced front-end development, and then you'll move into focusing on the computer science concepts that you'll need to not only succeed in the interviews that you'll face when you're applying for jobs, but to also become good at your skill, good at your job once you are hired. These are particular projects that were written at Thinkful by one of our mentors. His name is Dr. Mike Littman, and he's a professor of computer science at the University in Wisconsin. These projects are all part of the curriculum, but we have additional sets of projects that Dr. Littman has written for us for students that are looking for a deeper dive into the computer science concepts, things like data structures and algorithms. So in the past, we've worked to pair students with Dr. Littman for a couple of sessions here and there to make sure that they can be in touch with an absolute professional who can pass on their knowledge to them. You're going to be using all of these skills to build a portfolio. And as you should all know, and as many of you already know, a portfolio is the most important component, or one of the most important components of your applications to become a developer. And for that reason, it's extremely important that you're building a portfolio that's unique, that's comprehensive, and that truly makes you stand out from other candidates who are applying for the same job. If you're looking into a program that has you recreate sites like Airbnb or Reddit or Instagram, sure, those portfolio pieces are eventually going to show a hiring manager or a senior engineer that you're interviewing with that you can follow set criteria and build a project. But they're not going to show that hiring manager that you're someone who can take an idea from its very initial stages, meaning thinking about what that application is going to provide in terms of a solution or service, seeing that through a wireframing, putting that through a first version that you then present to your colleagues, meaning your mentor, career path program manager, other students, and other mentors, that will give you a lot of feedback on what that project looks like and how you should refactor it. Then you take that feedback and you turn it into a second, more finalized version that you present to the hiring managers when you apply for jobs, and can explain the entire process from the very beginning stages to its final execution. That's something that's unique to Thinkful's career or bootcamp program, and it's something that you'll be able to do at least 4 times in the program. Throughout the course, you're going to be focusing on around 12 to 15 smaller sized projects that you'll work on with your mentor and with your fellow students to build skills and to practice the concepts that you're learning. Then, as I mentioned, you're going to focus at least 4 capstone projects that are entirely student created with the help of your mentor. And a perfect example of one of those projects is what you see on screen now. I actually wanted to step away from the presentation shortly to hop on the internet and give you an idea of this application in real time. Let's see, share my screen once more time. So Paul Anderson is one of our most recent graduates. He is currently working as a developer outside of Dallas, Texas. And this is the application that he built. It shows users where what events are happening in their area. So these little pink dots could all be music events, basketball game. I've seen knitting clubs at the YMCA. I've also seen memorials, funerals, sadly, things like that. We'll drag the map over to Lower Manhattan, which is where Thinkful HQ is located, and we can go ahead and refresh that app. And these pink dots will pop up on the screen. You can click on one of these dots, see what it is, get tickets to one of them. Let's see, let's click on this one. And the site will take you to something like Banners in Town, Ticketfly, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, the actual site of the venue that that the event is being held at. And you can buy tickets, share it with your friends, all the things you'd normally do. But this is to give you an overview of how complex one of these capstone projects really is and how unique they can be. Paul was able to present this to his hiring managers and explain the entire process that he went through to build it. And for that reason, he was hired as a developer and is now currently working. But of course, there's so much more than just building a portfolio and getting hired. And at Thinkful, we truly understand that. And that's one of the reasons that the career prep component of the program is so comprehensive and so heavy. At Thinkful, you're also going to be paired with a career coach. So in addition to your personal mentor who's there to help you build the technical skills, you'll be working with a professional who's there to help you gain the non-technical skills, teaching you how to get hired in an industry that is so competitive and that is growing so quickly and constantly changing. From the very beginning of the course, you're going to work with this career coach to initially explore your interests, talk about what types of companies you'd like to work for, where in the country you would be looking for jobs, and discuss whether you should attend hackathons or tech meetups in your area to grow the network of potential employers that you could work with in the future. Then, once you start building the technical skills, you will be meeting with mentors from within our network who are going to help you put those to practice by holding mock interview sessions. These are going to be exactly like the technical interviews that you face once you submit applications, but they're structured to help you practice. There will be at least 4 of these, so not 3, at least 4 of them, that will start out covering things like front-end development, fundamentals of HTML and CSS and JavaScript. They're going to get progressively more tough and cover things like the computer science concepts I mentioned. They're also going to cover the non-technical component of an interview to make sure that if you go into a first interview, you're not nervous, that you can perform well and let your technical skills and your history shine through without repeating yourself or without going off topic. These are all things that you're going to practice in these interview sessions. And they're going to be held with different mentors each time, meaning you'll never get comfortable by working with the same mentor and knowing what types of questions they're going to ask. They'll be exactly like the technical interviews you'll face. And I say at least 4, because if there's a particular project or a particular concept that you're having a bit of trouble explaining or getting through, we're scheduling another one with a different mentor to make sure that you have enough practice so that by the time that you are close to graduation and are submitting applications, you are prepared. Once you are actively searching for jobs, you and your career coach will be working on a weekly basis to review your application materials, of course, take a look at your LinkedIn profile, review the emails you're crafting, resume, portfolio, all of those components, practice phone calls that will initially lead to a technical interview, all of those components, and then we'll be guiding you in submitting an application. And while you are actively submitting applications, we do that on our end as well. And Thinkful is the only online programming bootcamp that does this. We reach out to potential employers that we've worked with in the past, and we set up a personal introduction. It's not a fair that you're invited to. We're not putting you in a room with all of your other classmates and other students and having you fight to the death for a job with one of the employers that we've worked with in the past. We're reaching out to that employer one-on-one saying, hey, we have a graduate, Jane or Max or Shisti, that has completed our program. They have all the skills that you're looking for, and we'd like to set up an interview and introduction. And you take it from there. Liz Parsekian, one of my colleagues at Thinkful, she's the person that you see on screen now, is one of the main driving forces behind this. She's actively growing our network of potential employers. To give you an overview of what these connections are like and how we do that, a couple of weeks ago, I sat in a room with her while she was on the phone with one of the hiring managers over at Amazon in Seattle. We were originally looking for a job for one of our graduates in Denver, but the hiring manager let us know that their Denver office isn't looking for new developers. But she said, hey, we're hiring in Seattle. Send any of your graduates our way. We'd love to interview them. That's a connection that we now have and that we're going to be using once program graduates are looking for jobs in Seattle. Another example that I can think of is one of our more recent graduates, Rachel, began working for a company here in New York City where the company reached out to Thinkful a couple of weeks later and said, we are growing a lot faster than we thought we would, and it may be that in the coming weeks or months, we need to hire more developers, and we'd like for you to send any graduates that you have in New York City over our way. We're very happy with Rachel's performance, and we'd love to take another look at a candidate. These are all connections that Thinkful has built and is continuing to build in cities across the United States. So if you're someone who was looking for a job in St. Paul, Minnesota, or Denver, Colorado, or Chicago, Illinois, we'd be reaching out to employers in Chicago or St. Paul or Denver and making an introduction to companies that you would be a good fit for based on what your skills are and what your career goals are. And again, we're doing this because the most important component of a bootcamp is to get you a job. It's not to give you a diploma or a pseudo degree that was approved by Google or Airbnb or Apple. It's to get you a job that's going to improve your skills as you progress in your career as a developer that will lead into a senior position. We're making currently around 3 to 5 introductions per graduate. And again, this is all done on a case-by-case basis. And we do this once more because the success of our graduates is what's most important for us. And we also want to be extremely transparent about what our graduates can expect from their program. That's one of the reasons that in January of this year, Thinkful became the first online programming school and recently became the only online programming school to have to publish a report and then have it audited that has statistics on the outcomes of our graduates. On there, you'll see numbers like the job placement rate that we have, which is at 93%. You'll also see the titles of our graduates that range from software engineer to web developer to front-end developer. You'll see where they are in the country and what their demographics are like. How many men versus women are in the program, what are their ages, how long did it take them to get a job. These are all statistics that we report on because we want students to have the tools that they need to make a truly informed decision when they're considering a bootcamp. Whether that's Thinkful or an in-person bootcamp in their city or another online program, we want you as a student to ask us the questions that make us really be transparent about our processes and about what you can expect as a student. Everyone here at Thinkful, from our 2 co-founders, Dale Silver and Dan Friedman, to every mentor that you'll be working with, and every single person you see at Thinkful HQ, including our CTO, Saul, that you see behind me, strongly believes that education requires trust and that transparency is one of the only and most effective ways of building that trust. And so we published this report, had it audited by an accounting firm in Massachusetts because we want each student to have real data that you can trust and not necessarily take a leap of faith into trusting that Thinkful or any other bootcamp is being honest about the results that they publish. So Heavily encourage you to take a look at that report, ask me any questions you have about the numbers you see on there. And overall, I also heavily encourage you that if you see a site that has a percentage sign or a dollar sign next to a number, that you ask, is that the national average for students or for graduates of all programs, including computer science degrees around the country? Or is that salary that you're reporting the average for your graduates in a specific city like San Francisco or in a place like Denver, Colorado? What does that number really mean? Job placement rate, exactly the same. What are those jobs? Are they full-time salary positions, or is it someone working as a help desk? Those are all numbers that we should be really looking into. And one of the ways that Thinkful is pushing the industry to be more progressive and transparent about its processes is by publishing such a report. As I mentioned, we're also working with graduates that are really coming from very different backgrounds. Most of the students that come to Thinkful don't have a technical background. And the four students you see on, or the four graduates rather, that you see on screen now are perfect examples of that. Matt Morris was working as an English teacher. He was focusing on English as a second language, working outside of Dallas, Texas. And he'd always wanted to be a developer and had even taken steps to do that on his own. So things like Codecademy, Treehouse, had spoken to developers that he knew. But he figured out quickly that he needed something a little bit more immersive. And that meant coming to Thinkful's bootcamp. He went through the bootcamp program that we have, and he's now currently working as a developer at RealPage Inc., which is outside of Dallas. Emily Gelber is another great example of one of our recent grads. She, like Matt, has a completely non-technical background. She studied political science as part of her undergrad, and then went through a number of different internship positions in a range of industries, where now she's currently working as a software engineer after having enrolled in the Thinkful Web Development Bootcamp, or what was back then known as the Career Path Program. And yeah, she's working right uptown for us at the IBM office. Rachel's the graduate that I mentioned here in New York, working as a developer over at Hedgeville. And Christian is working as a developer in Los Angeles. He was coming from a completely non-technical background. He was working as a retail salesperson, and now he's a developer in LA. But yeah, as you can see, we're working with graduates from all around the country, really different backgrounds, and we know that our graduates are successful and that a student who commits to the program will be successful. And a way for us to stand behind that confidence that we have is to offer a guarantee that says that if you don't find a job as a developer within 6 months of completing the program, we refund 100% of your tuition. But you should know that what's most important to Thinkful is that you're putting in the time and the effort to learn the technical skills and build a portfolio, and also actively search for jobs. One thing we'll never do is we'll never ask you to submit X amount of applications per day or per week. We'll never ask you to say, hey, you don't live in an area that has jobs, you should apply to 3 different cities, and the first one you get, you should move to. We'll never do that. What we'll do is we'll work with every individual student to make sure that the guarantee can apply. And that means discussing the not so fine print, so that you're at least 21 years old, that you're legally able to work in the United States, and that you speak and write English to a proficient level. This last component is very important, not just for Thinkful, but also for the student. We ask that you're living in an area or willing to commute or relocate to an area that has a healthy job market for web development. Now, the entire United States really has a healthy job market for web development overall. But what's important to consider is that the program that you're looking into is going to teach you to work with web development technologies that are specific. At Thinkful, that means JavaScript and its different frameworks, which is really the most in demand throughout the entire country. But it also means that other programs may focus on things like .NET and PHP, which we don't teach at Thinkful, but are very in demand in places like Northern or Western North Carolina, or places like Little Rock, Arkansas, places like Mobile, Alabama, where there are web development jobs, but they focus on these older technologies like .NET and PHP. At Thinkful, we want to make sure that when you're considering the bootcamp program, you're enrolling in a course that's going to provide you with skills that are relevant in your location. So we work with individual students, discuss the location that they're in, and then offer the guarantee or offer guidance as to what may be a better program, depending on where they're living. Really, the guarantees or the guarantee clause that says you're living in an area is really broad, and you'd be surprised to see how many cities around the United States have a healthy job market for JavaScript jobs. So if you're curious, type it into the chat box. We'll discuss that together, and we'll even run through dice.com to make sure that we know what we're looking for. Really, what's most important to Thinkful is that you are putting in the effort and the time. If not, we refund your tuition after 6 months if you're not able to find a job. But I wanted to then discuss the differences between the flexible bootcamp opportunity and the full-time program. Before, this was known as the part-time and the full-time program. Name change, the whole program stands still, in that it's providing you with the same opportunities, regardless of whether you're a student who's approaching it from a more self-paced and flexible perspective, or someone who's looking for something more full-time and immersive. Both programs are going to offer you the same career opportunities, the same job placement guarantee, and they also teach you the same concepts and have the same high level of personal mentorship. The key difference between the two programs is that they're structured for a different student. The student who's looking at the flexible option is looking for something that's self-paced, that will allow them to keep a full-time job because they have a job they'd like to continue working for, or they have responsibility of attending school part-time, or kids that keep them busy. It's perfect for someone who's able to devote at least 20 hours per week and meet with their personal mentor 3 times a week to transition through the curriculum in about 6 months' time. You're joining a very active community of hundreds of different mentors and students throughout the program. And this doesn't mean that you're joining forums or that you're just having access to Slack. This means that you have access to dozens of office hours every single week that you can attend that are live and over video chat, just like your one-on-one sessions are. This also means that you're meeting with your personal mentor 3 times a week, not twice a week for 45 minutes, 3 times a week, 1-hour-long sessions, making sure that you have enough time to understand what you're working on and build your portfolio to another level. As I mentioned, you have the complete option of attending as many office hours and workshops as you'd like, and you have resources available 24/7 to help you succeed through the program, so that if you're coding at 3 a.m. in the morning, like I have in the past, you can get on touch with someone on Slack who may be working in Europe or in parts of Australia where they're up and active. On the full-time side, you have a more immersive program. This is really the most comparable to an in-person boot camp in terms of the style and in terms of how structured it is. You're going to be working with your fellow students and your mentors and your lead instructor every single day, Monday through Friday, to follow a structured daily lesson plan of lectures, pair programming sessions, and workshops that you attend. These start out in the morning by having you sit in on a very immersive and very comprehensive lecture that's live, held by our lead instructor, Joe Turner, and they'll change to different instructors throughout the program, but these are very small in size, 6 or 7 students in the room with you. Think of it more of as a seminar, where there's the instructor live teaching you the skills, and you can say, hey, excuse me, 1 second, I have a question. The mentor will run through that with you in front of everyone so that everyone has a chance to listen in. You'll then jump into different pair programming sessions and discuss the program individually with your personal mentor at the end of the day. You're working at a pace of around 50 hours per week, and you're graduating in exactly 4 months. And I'm happy to discuss what the specific differences are between the 2 programs in greater detail. After the presentation, if you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead and type that into the chat box. The person that you see behind me now is actually one of our co-founders, and it's Dale Silver. Yeah, now I'll wrap up the presentation real quickly by discussing the different scholarships and financing options that we have. We've partnered with 3 really incredible organizations, Girl Develop It, Operation Code, and Other Coders, to provide all self-identifying women and U.S. military members and veterans scholarships to the program. These can be combined with all the financing options that we have, and there's no application needed for these. If you're eligible to receive it, you will receive it upon enrolling. The deferred payment plan and the loan opportunity are the 2 options that you have to finance your program. They're different for both the flexible or part-time option, as you see on screen, and the full-time program. And I'm happy to discuss what those differences are, as well as what the scholarships are specifically on a follow-up call, once we've decided whether the full-time program or the part-time program might be the right option for you. Regarding the cost of the course, the more flexible option is at $1,500 per month, because we do have students finishing at different speeds, whereas the full-time program is $14,000. It's a 4-month program, regardless of how many hours you think you'll commit for 4 months. So I wanted to thank everyone once more for coming to the Thinkful Info session. I'll go ahead and continue sharing my screen, but also answer any questions that you have. And if you do need to step away and get back to your day, please don't hesitate to send me an email over at noel@thinkful.com or schedule a call with me through thinkful.com. So first, I'll scroll up to make sure that didn't miss any questions. This would be a great opportunity for me to share with you all a couple of links that I mentioned I would. So that's the jobs report that I discussed, that has statistics on the outcomes of our graduates, where they are in the country, what their job titles are, what the job placement rate is like. So that's one of those links. And if you saw anything on the website, by the way, that you wanted me to reference, whether that's relating to the Web Development Bootcamp or to one of our individual courses, now would be the time to ask. What do you think stops those 7% finding jobs? Great question. I know the personal background story of 2 of those people that didn't find jobs, and I'll discuss that in detail. The other students, I'm not sure, I'm not able to speak directly to what those stories are, but to give you an overview, and I think this is actually a pretty good representation of what happens to those 7%. One of the students was coming into the program as a senior level position. So he was working a job, he had been working at the same company for a number of years, was making a salary well over 6 figures, and was considering a transition into web development, something that he'd really like to focus on and wanted to learn. He graduated from the program, decided that he didn't want to take the salary cut, and continued working for his company. Because he didn't find a job as a developer or engineer, even though he graduated and is successful in what he's doing, we can't put him in the job placement component, so he's not someone who would count as a placed graduate. Another graduate, we weren't able to help him find a job because honestly he wasn't actively looking, and that's something that was very difficult into our first year and difficult to work with, but it happens, and it's something that we have to report on, even if it's not something that's going to get our job placement rate at 99% or 97%. We're actively working towards making sure that it's closer to the higher 90s, but as things like that occur, we have to report on that and we have to be honest. What are the financing options? Great question. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can hop onto the different financing options that we have. One of our front-end developers at Thinkful put together this very handy payment calculator. In it, you're able to see all the payment plans for the bootcamp program, whether you're looking at the flexible option or the more full-time option. You're able to select also whether you're eligible for a scholarship or how many months it'll take you to complete if you're looking at the self-paced option. The financing options, though, to go through those, include the opportunity of applying for a loan or enrolling through the deferred payment plan. If you're someone who's considering the flexible option, across every financing option, there is an initial monthly payment for $1,500 or $1,300, depending on if you're eligible for the scholarship, that's due on the day that you start your program. After that, you're able to finance the remaining of your program through the loan with Skills Fund, which if you're approved, could bring your monthly payments down to at most $250. I say at most, because that changes depending on how much you borrow. They could be lower if you're eligible for the scholarship, or depending on how much it takes you to graduate. You can play around with that there. The deferred payment plan, there is no application for it. It's something that you're able to enroll in the program with without having to apply for. You make that initial monthly payment of $1,500, and then you begin making monthly payments of $500 every month until the total cost of your program is paid off. Again, you can see what that program price would be. And by the way, the numbers that you see on this payment calculator are exactly what you'll pay. So if you want to screenshot it, go ahead and do so. We'll stand by that even if the program were to change in 6 months and you're still enrolled, it's exactly what you'll pay. The full-time program is similar in the sense that you can finance it through a Skills Fund loan or through a deferred payment plan, but different in numbers because it's different in structure. You can apply for the loan, and if you're approved, you'll make an initial monthly payment of $1,000 that's due 1 week before the start of your course. And then you'll finance the remainder of the program through Skills Fund, making payments both while you're in the program that are pretty low, and then once you've found a job as a developer, they increase in price or in amount. The deferred payment plan is similar to the one for the flexible option. Make an initial monthly payment 1 week before your start, $2,800, and then monthly payments of $1,000 for a specific amount of time. If you're eligible for the scholarship, that would be at 13 months. If you're not, it would be at 14 months. You can always change financing option. Let's say, for example, that you enroll in a flexible program through month to month because you have some savings that you'd like to use. And then you decide you want to take a vacation and would rather be paying $500 a month instead. You can totally do that. Just get in touch with our support team. And I'll post the financing options on the chat box now. What is more popular on the job market right now, Ruby or Python? Great question. I'd say JavaScript is the most popular programming language you'll see. There's actually, if you go onto GitHub and you look at what the most common or how many lines of code are on GitHub overall, JavaScript is the language that has the highest percentage of that, and it's something that has been happening for the last several years and will continue to grow. If you're comparing Python and Ruby, I'd say Python is more widely used in terms of that it can span across different industries, not just a web development technology. You can also use Python for data science, and for that reason, a lot of companies and a lot of employers will focus on using Python for backend development, Thinkful included. We teach JavaScript because we are preparing students for the most in-demand jobs, But there are applications at Thinkful that would work better with Python because we're dealing with such high numbers of data. It's something very specific to Thinkful. And another reason that we also can teach Python is part of the flexible option. So if you're someone who's interested in learning to work with JavaScript for full stack and also Python, please talk to your career path program manager. That's something that we can definitely integrate. Ruby on Rails, on the other hand, is not something that we're able to work with because we've seen Ruby on Rails jobs decrease in popularity in many parts of the country. Of course, if you're in someone like San Francisco or New York or maybe even Austin or Seattle, sure, those jobs are going to be there. But JavaScript is something that's been taking over, and we don't see that stopping for any reason. Can you clear up the discrepancy of the number of graduates, 50 versus the number of reviews online on course report? Yeah, so the number of reviews that you see online on course report include reviews that were for other programs. So we have students that enrolled in our front-end course, or students that enrolled in our Ruby on Rails course, or that enrolled in our user experience design course. And those are all reports that we have. We have hundreds and hundreds of reports on course review because we've had hundreds and thousands of students enroll in all Thinkful programs. But for the career path program, we have 50 graduates. It's one of the newer programs at Thinkful. Overall, or the web development bootcamp has only been around since April of 2015. The full-time program only started in April of 2016. But the reports that you see on course report, which I'll actually share my screen and go to now. Let's see. As you see, Thinkful is the most reviewed. And you're right, we have hundreds and hundreds of, I don't know if you have also noticed this, but course reports user interface has been kind of broken in the last couple of days. I'm sure that they're working very hard to fix it, but it takes a little while to load, probably because they have so much data on the site. But we do have hundreds and hundreds of reports of reviews. These are all for all the different courses. So when you look at this list, programming in Python, data science, user experience, those are what our reports are for. So not just the bootcamp program, but all the courses overall at Thinkful. One question that I have for everyone is, and it's something that I definitely discuss with students individually when we're on the phone, where in the country are you? As I mentioned, Thinkful is located in Lower Manhattan. We are currently in Soho. Office may be moving soon, not sure where, hopefully not to Brooklyn. But where are you in the country? I know that I recognize some names in the list. I've seen a couple of you, I've spoken to a couple of you. Hoboken, New Jersey, one of Thinkful's own lives in Hoboken, actually. She takes the path into the office every day. Mountain View, great. You're in the middle of Silicon Valley. Awesome. Mountain View actually has one of my favorite venues, the amphitheater, Mountain View Amphitheater. I've seen tons of different performers there. It's great sitting on the lawn for certain shows. Like I remember seeing Little Big Town and Keith Urban there, and that was great to be on the lawn. But then for more focused artists that are singers, seeing them in the actual auditorium was great. But yeah, if you were in our position, what would you look for in a bootcamp? Why choose Thinkful over others? Great question. That's a really great question. If I were in your position, I would make a spreadsheet. I would open up a Google spreadsheet or Excel document, type in the names of the bootcamps that you're considering, take into consideration things like the programming language that they're teaching, whether that's a full stack JavaScript like Hack Reactor or Thinkful or Makersquare, or whether they're teaching you Ruby on Rails. Then also consider the price, of course. Consider the structure and the flexibility that you want, whether you're looking for a truly immersive and traditional bootcamp experience like the full-time program, or something that lets you have the same result, but a more self-paced and flexible option, like the flexible program we have. Consider also whether that program offers you a guarantee. Consider how many hours of live personal support you'll receive in the program. For Thinkful, that's 3 hours every week. For the flexible program, 3 times a week, or every day for the full-time program. Consider also whether that program offers a guarantee. If not, ask why, and consider not enrolling in a program that's not going to guarantee you a job and stand behind their program. Next, consider whether that program is transparent about their opportunities. Whether they have a job placement guarantee or not, they should also be honest about what job placement means for them. So if they don't publish a report that says we have X amount of graduates and this is what the job placement rate is like, and they don't publish that, ask why. If they tell you over the phone and aren't able to properly explain if there's a lower percentage in hiring graduates that are hired or graduates that have completed the program. All of that are important things that you need to consider, because absolutely a bootcamp should be doing a good job in keeping track of that data and identifying any issue or any reason that a job placement rate wouldn't be in the high 90s or in the 90s in general. Or if they're publishing data on salary, ask them what that salary means. Once you put that spreadsheet together, compare these programs, take a closer look at making sure that you can discuss any questions that you have with the person who's representing them, so either through me or another advisor or another bootcamp, and then come to an informed decision that really takes all of those components into consideration. That's what one of our students at Thinkful did, something that I do when I'm traveling, like took courses in college. So if I were in your shoes, that would be the approach that I can take, making sure that you're going into the bootcamp that's the best for you in terms of the fact that you can trust them and that the program is going to benefit who you are as a student. How will the lessons affect me living in Europe? Spain specifically. Well, our CTO, the person that you see behind me over there on the couch, his name is Saul. He's actually from Spain. He is from Catalonia, and my grandparents are from, but doesn't affect at all. If you're in the self-paced flexible option, you can work from around the world. We have several students currently working out of the UK, students that have begun the program in Sweden, in India, even have students in Australia. So you can enroll wherever you are in the country, complete the self-paced and more flexible option, and expect the same high level of assistance in both the technical skills and also finding a job. We have introduced graduates to companies in the UK. We have several graduates working currently in Toronto and outside of the United States and Canada. And my colleague Liz is going to be actively looking for positions for our graduate in India once they graduate, and also places like Australia and Sweden. So the mentor component will be the same. You'll be able to access and speak to that mentor at your own time, because we have mentors from around the world. And also the career search will be very specific and very customized around who you are as a student. New Jersey, sad face. I've never been to New Jersey. I've actually went to Prasmas, I think, to the IKEA there. It's great. It was like being back in Southern California and driving through fields. But how do you measure success for students who plan to use the skills learned to launch their own web-based business as opposed to looking for a job? Great question. It's more difficult for us to measure the success of students that are not enrolling in the program for the goal of a full-time job, because that's honestly a very, very few number of students. We had one student that enrolled in the program to change over their legacy stack or the legacy code to something more updated with JavaScript. And that student enrolled, completed the part of the curriculum that they wanted to, and they withdrew. So that student wasn't job seeking, so we couldn't count them towards the job placement rate. But they also weren't a graduate that failed. They were just a student that went through the program to learn the skills and then did what they wanted of them. So it's difficult for us to measure that because it's very, very small number. So I would say, yeah, most of the students in the program do have the goal of going into a career full-time. So I would say the program will do a very successful job, and you should take the job placement rate and see students was able to gain the skills to get into a job. I'll be able to gain the skills, period. It's something that works and that succeeds. If that can answer your question. What is the average salary for the 50 grads of the web development course? Great question. I'll go ahead and share my screen to explain the answer. So if we go back to the career path job support, we see that we report on the salary increase amongst our job seeking graduates. And one of the reasons that we report on salary increase as opposed to a salary number is the map that you see at the very bottom of the screen. We are working with students from all around the country and also all around the world. So we want to make sure that instead of reporting the starting salary for graduates in San Francisco or New York, which is a lot higher than it would be for someone in a place like Seattle or a place like Austin, Texas, we report on the percent increase that our students can expect. This takes into consideration the ranging salaries for students in New York and San Francisco. And it also takes into consideration, mind you, that some of our students are leaving their more senior level jobs and are taking a pay cut. So overall, our students see a higher salary increase. And we do discuss what a graduate can expect on a city-by-city basis. If you're someone who's in San Francisco, you can expect a starting salary of $80,000 or higher. If you're someone in New York City, $75,000 or higher. Two of our most recent graduates in Dallas, Texas are currently at 65. But we take a look at the individual market in your area and where you'd be looking for jobs and aim you towards making a salary that's at market rate or higher. So that's one of the reasons that we don't report on the national salary average across the country, which is at $61,000 the last time I checked. But again, that includes data from places like Denver, Colorado, or Salt Lake City, where your starting salary would be closer to $50,000, and also places like New York City and San Francisco, where your starting salary would be closer to the $80,000 range. So publishing $80,000 or $60,000 or $50,000, though true, wouldn't necessarily be helpful. It's not something that's really honest because you're an individual student in a different part of the country. One of the main reasons that I did say, if you are considering a bootcamp that reports on the starting salary of bootcamp or not bootcamp, but developers around the country, that you're wary for that. Of course, there's a $95,000 salary that's going to be out there for developers all around the country, because that can include a lot of different things. Instead, it's important to make sure that your specific city has a specific salary range that you discuss with your advisor or the bootcamp that you're considering. Thanks for your response to the Europe question. Last two questions. Is it advisable to start working remotely? And do you have companies offering these kinds of jobs? If such a company is located in the US, is it a requirement to also live there? Lastly, what software do you use? Sublime Text, add-on brackets, or something else? P.S. I use a Linux. Great question. I'll answer the last question first. We encourage students to set up their own development environment on their computers. So if you're working from a PC, which I think only a very small number of students are, that'll be working with something like Cloud9, which is what you see on screen now. It's an online development environment that can handle many different languages and packages. Certainly anything you focus on Thinkful, also Ruby on Rails and Python. And if you're someone who is on a Mac or a Linux, you'll be working straight from your terminal and using Sublime Text. Screen sharing session went away. Using Sublime Text on your terminal, kind of like what you see on screen now, project that I was working on earlier. Setting up your development, I use Sublime Text. You can also work with add-on or another text editor. The mentors have tons of experience, so they're able to work with you on that. The other question which you noted, which was, is it advisable to start working remotely? And do we have companies that offer remote jobs? Multi-step question. We do have companies and graduates that are working remote. Two of our most recent graduates I can think of, one Bracha, the other I think is Sean. He's working for one of our mentors as a developer for that mentor's individual company. The other student, Bracha, that went through the program is working remote out of Montana for a startup. And though it's possible to find remote work, it's something that the guarantee doesn't cover, which you're in Europe, so the guarantee wouldn't apply anyway, but it's something that's not always the most advisable. Unless you're someone who can't really work full-time at an office, we would say consider doing a full-time job. One, because you're going to be working with a team of other developers, and the experience that you're going to gain is incredible. You're going to be working with senior engineers, and you're going to be walking away from that position ready to apply for a senior job yourself. Additionally, it's also a lot more competitive and difficult to find an entry-level job that will allow you to work remotely. Not saying that you're not going to be prepared for those types of positions and to outcompete other candidates, but you should take into consideration that a lot of non-entry-level developers are also going to be applying for those entry-level jobs. To some people, working remotely outweighs making $20,000 more at a non-entry-level position. And if you're someone who's competing against someone who has 3 or 4 years of professional experience, regardless of what bootcamp you're going into, or regardless of whether you graduated from a place like UC Berkeley or MIT with a computer science degree, it's going to be extremely difficult to outweigh someone who has 3 or 4 years of experience working as a developer that really wants to work remote. So we don't discourage you from doing that. We just simply encourage you more to look for a full-time job as opposed to something that's remote. I have one more question though. When looking at various video tutorials, a majority of the unregistered version have the unregistered version of Sublime Text. That is a really bad habit, isn't it? I haven't registered mine. I've been lazy. You should definitely register as if you'd like. You don't have to. It's completely free. And if you register, it's not. So something that you can discuss with your mentor, but I personally haven't done it, which is not good. But yeah. Now, I did want to post my contact information on the chat box just in case you'd like to get in touch with me over the coming days. I would definitely encourage that we schedule a call to discuss the program, whether you're interested in the full-time or the more flexible option. So I will go ahead and post on the screen now. First, my email address, noel@thinkful.com, and then the link to schedule a call with me. You can select a time for the rest of today or tomorrow that would work best for you. That being said, John Noel, what are the next steps as far as completing the pre-course work? Another great question, which I'll also post on the site. So, in the event that you are interested in doing the full-time program, we do ask that students enroll in a 2-week prep course, as you may have seen, to make sure that the program would be a good fit for them. And you can begin that prep course at any time, regardless of whether you're looking to do a future cohort to the one that comes up next month is August 22nd. You can also enroll in that 2-week prep course if you're considering one in September. We can always discuss that. But to enroll in the 2-week prep course, you would follow that link. You'd be paired with a mentor within a couple of days, and would also be in touch with one of my colleagues at Thinkful, who happens to be the young lady sitting over there. Her name is Tatiana. She's going to be one of your advisors for that 2-week prep course, making sure that we're getting a lot of feedback from you on how the program is going, figure out if the full-time program is really the right option for you. So, like it has been for many students and almost all students, you can transition right away. Other than that, if you have any questions, I look forward to speaking with all of you individually through email or by scheduling a call. You can always hop in another one of these info sessions if you want to get a chance to listen to other student questions. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a good remainder of the day, and I look forward to speaking with you all one-on-one. Take care. You're welcome.